The Tyrant's Tomb by Riordan. Narrated by Ty Farnsworth of Echo Wirm. Chapter 1. There is no food here. Meg ate all the Swedish fish. Please get off my hearse. I believe in returning dead bodies. Seems like a simple courtesy, doesn't it? A warrior dies, you should do what you can to get their body back to their people for funerary rites. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I am over 4,000 years old. But I find it rude not to properly dispose of corpses. Achilles during the Trojan War, for instance. Total pig. He chariot dragged the body of the Trojan champion Hector around the walls of the city for days. Finally, I convinced Zeus to pressure the big bully into returning Hector's body to his parents so he could have a decent burial. I mean, come on. Have a little respect for the people you slaughter. Then there was Oliver Cromwell's corpse. I wasn't a fan of the man, but please. First, the English bury him with honors. Then they decide they hate him, so they dig him up and execute his body. Then his head falls off the pike where it's been impaled for decades and gets passed around from collector to collector for almost 3 centuries like a disgusting souvenir snow globe. Finally, in 1960, I whispered in the ears of some influential people, "Enough already. I am the god Apollo, and I order you to bury that thing. You're grossing me out." When it came to Jason Grace, my fallen friend and half-brother, I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. I would personally escort his coffin to Camp Jupiter and see him off with full honors. That turned out to be a good call. What with the ghouls attacking us and everything. Sunset turned San Francisco Bay into a cauldron of molten copper as our private plane landed at Oakland Airport. I say our private plane. The chartered trip was actually a parting gift from our friend Piper McLean and her movie star father. Everyone should have at least one friend with a movie star parent. Waiting for us beside the runway was another surprise the McLeans must have arranged. A gleaming black hearse. Meg McCaffrey and I stretched our legs on the tarmac while the ground crew somberly removed Jason's coffin from the Cessna's storage bay. The polished mahogany box seemed to glow in the evening light. Its brass fixtures glinted red. I hated how beautiful it was. Death shouldn't be beautiful. The crew loaded it into the hearse, then transferred our luggage to the back seat. We didn't have much. Meg's backpack and mine, my bow and quiver and ukulele, and a couple of sketchbooks and posterboard dioramas we'd inherited from Jason. I signed some paperwork, accepted the flight crew's condolences, then shook hands with a nice undertaker who handed me the keys to the hearse, and walked away. I stared at the keys, then at Meg McCaffrey, who was chewing the head off a Swedish fish. The plane had been stocked with 6 tins of the squishy red candy. Not anymore. Meg had single-handedly brought the Swedish fish ecosystem to the brink of collapse. Am I supposed to drive? I wondered. Is this a rental hearse? I'm pretty sure my New York junior driver's license doesn't cover this. Meg shrugged. During our flight, she'd insisted on sprawling on the Cessna's sofa, so her dark pageboy haircut was flattened against the side of her head. One rhinestone-studded point of her cat-eye glasses poked through her hair like a disco shark fin. The rest of her outfit was equally disreputable. Floppy red high tops, threadbare yellow leggings, and the well-loved knee-length green frock she had gotten from Percy Jackson's mother. By well-loved, I mean the frock had been through so many battles, been washed and mended so many times, it looked less like a piece of clothing and more like a deflated hot air balloon. Around Meg's waist was the piece de resistance, her multi-pocketed gardening belt, because children of Demeter never leave home without one. I don't have a driver's license, she said, as if I needed a reminder that my life was presently being controlled by a 12-year-old. I call shotgun. Calling shotgun didn't seem appropriate for a hearse. Nevertheless, Meg skipped to the passenger's side and climbed in. I got behind the wheel. Soon we were out of the airport and cruising north on I-880 in our rented black Griefmobile. The Bay Area. I'd spent some happy times here. The vast misshapen geographic bowl was jam-packed with interesting people and places. I loved the green and golden hills, the fog-swept coastline, the glowing lacework of bridges, and the crazy zigzag of neighborhoods shouldered up against one another like subway passengers at rush hour. Back in the 50s, I played with Dizzy Gillespie at a bop city in Fillmore. During the Summer of Love, I hosted an impromptu jam session in Golden Gate Park with the Grateful Dead. Lovely bunch of guys, but did they really need those 15-minute-long solos? In the 1980s, I hung out in Oakland with Stan Burrell, otherwise known as MC Hammer, as he pioneered pop rap. I can't claim credit for Stan's music, but I did advise him on his fashion choices. Those gold lame parachute pants? Those were my idea. You're welcome, fashionistas. Most of the Bay Area brought back good memories, but as I drove, I couldn't help glancing to the northwest, toward Marin County and the dark peak of Mount Tamalpais. We gods knew the place as Mount Othris, seat of the Titans. Even though our ancient enemies had been cast down, their palace destroyed, I could still feel the evil pull of the place, like a magnet trying to extract the iron from my now mortal blood. I did my best to shake the feeling. We had other problems to deal with. Besides, we were going to Camp Jupiter, friendly territory on this side of the bay. I had Meg for backup. I was driving a hearse. What could possibly go wrong? The Nimitz freeway snaked through the East Bay flatlands, past warehouses and docklands, strip malls and rows of dilapidated bungalows. To our right rose downtown Oakland, a city without any sports teams, its small cluster of high-rises facing off against a cooler neighbor San Francisco across the bay, as if proclaiming, "We're Oakland! We still exist too!" Kinda. Meg reclined in her seat, propped her red high-tops up on the dashboard and cracked open her window. "I like this place," she decided. "We just got here," I said. "What is it you like? The abandoned warehouses? That sign for Bo's Chicken and Waffles?" "Nature." "Concrete counts as nature?" "There's trees too. Plants flowering. Moisture in the air. The eucalyptus smells good. It's not like—" She didn't need to finish her sentence. Our time in Southern California had been marked by scorching temperatures, extreme drought, and raging wildfires, all thanks to the magical burning maze controlled by Caligula and his hate-crazed sorceress bestie Medea. The Bay Area wasn't experiencing any of those problems. Well, not at the moment, anyway. We'd killed Medea. We'd extinguished the burning maze. We'd freed the Erythraean Sibyl and brought relief to the mortals and withering nature spirits of Southern California. But Caligula was very much still alive. He and his co-emperors in the triumvirate were still intent on controlling all means of prophecy, taking over the world, writing the future in their own sadistic image. Right now, Caligula's fleet of evil luxury yachts was making its way towards San Francisco to attack Camp Jupiter. I could only imagine what sort of hellish destruction the Emperor would rain down on Oakland and Bo's Chicken and Waffles. But even if we somehow managed to defeat the triumvirate, there was still that greatest oracle, Delphi, under the control of my old nemesis Python. How could I defeat him in my present form as a 16-year-old weakling? I had no idea. But hey, except for that, everything was fine. The eucalyptus smelled nice. Traffic slowed at the I-580 interchange. Apparently, California drivers didn't follow that custom of yielding to hearses out of respect. Perhaps they figured at least one of our passengers was already dead, so we weren't in a hurry. Meg toyed with her window control, raising and lowering the glass. "Reet! Reet! Reet!" "You know how to get to Camp Jupiter?" she asked. "Of course. 'Cause you said that about Camp Half-Blood." "Well, we got there eventually." "Yeah, frozen and half dead." "Look, the entrance to the camp is right over there." I waved vaguely at the Oakland Hills. "There's a secret passage in the Caldecott Tunnel or something." "Or something?" "Well, I haven't actually ever driven to Camp Jupiter," I admitted. "Usually I descend from the heavens in my glorious sun chariot, but I know the Caldecott Tunnel is the main entrance. There's probably a sign, perhaps a demigods only lane." Meg peered at me over the top of her glasses. "You're the dumbest god ever." She raised her window with a final a sound that reminded me uncomfortably of a guillotine blade. We turned northeast on Highway 24. The congestion eased as the hills loomed closer. The elevated lanes soared past neighborhoods of winding streets and tall conifers, white stucco houses clinging to the sides of grassy ravines. A roadside promised Caldecott Tunnel entrance, 2 miles. That should have comforted me. Soon we'd pass through the borders of Camp Jupiter into a heavily guarded, magically camouflaged valley, where an entire Roman legion could shield me from my worries. At least for a while. Why then were the hairs on the back of my neck quivering like sea worms? Something was wrong. It dawned on me that the uneasiness I'd felt since we landed might not be that distant threat of Caligula, or the old Titan base on Mount Tamalpais, but something more immediate, something malevolent, and getting closer. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Through the back window's gauzy curtains, I saw nothing but traffic. But then, in the polished surface of Jason's coffin lid, I caught the reflection of movement from a dark shape outside, as if a human-sized object had just flown past the hearse. Meg?" I tried to keep my voice even. "Do you see anything unusual behind us?" "Unusual like what?" Boom. The hearse lurched as if we'd been hitched to a trailer full of scrap metal. Above my head, 2-foot-shaped impressions appeared in the upholstered ceiling. "Something just landed on the roof," Meg deduced. "Thank you, Sherlock McCaffrey. Can you get it off?" "Me? How?" That was an annoyingly fair question. Meg could turn the rings of her middle fingers into wicked gold swords, but if she summoned them in close quarters, like the interior of the hearse, she, A, wouldn't have room to wield them, and B, might end up impaling me and or herself. "Greet! Greet!" The footprint impressions deepened as the thing adjusted its weight like a surfer on a board. It must have been immensely heavy to sink into the metal roof. A whimper bubbled in my throat. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I yearned for my bow and quiver in the back seat, but I couldn't have used them. DWSPW, driving while shooting projectile weapons. It's a big no-no, kids. "Maybe you can open the window," I said to Meg. "Lean out and tell it to go away." No. God, she was stubborn. What if you try to shake it off? Before I could explain that this was a terrible idea while traveling 50 miles an hour on a highway, I heard a sound like a pop-top aluminum can opening. The crisp pneumatic hiss of air through metal. A claw punctured the ceiling. A grimy white talon the size of a drill bit. Then another. And another. And another until the upholstery was studded with 10 pointy white spikes. Just the right number for 2 very large hands. "Meg!" I yelped. "Could you—" I don't know how I might have finished that sentence. Protect me? Kill that thing? Check in the back to see if I have any spare undies? I was rudely interrupted by the creature ripping open our roof like we were a birthday present. Staring down at me through the ragged hole was a withered, ghoulish humanoid, its blue-black hide glistening like the skin of a housefly, its eyes filmy white orbs, its bared teeth dripping saliva. Around its torso fluttered a loincloth of greasy black feathers. The smell coming off it was more putrid than any dumpster. Believe me, I'd fallen into a few. "Food!" it howled. "Kill it!" I yelled at Meg. "Swerve!" she countered. One of the many annoying things about being incarcerated in my puny mortal body, I was Meg McCaffrey's servant. I was bound to obey her direct commands. So when she yelled "swerve," I yanked the steering wheel so hard to the right that the hearse handled beautifully. It careened across 3 lanes of traffic, barreled straight through the guardrail, and then plummeted into the canyon below.